It's a recognition of what is here and what has been done by other people over the years. In a way, it's saying, congratulations, London, you deserve this. It's not just a city of culture, it's a city of wildlife.
Welcome back to Greenhouse. I'm Tony DeCopel. What you just saw was a man named Bill Oddie. He's a Londoner, and he's making the case for turning his city into a national park. All of it, the whole city. Now, I like the kind of dive bar that has one of those trees that go through the roof, so I support any campaign that makes the city a little bit wilder. And my next guest is leading the campaign Oddie was mentioning. It's a powerful effort to turn London into an official park city, the first of its kind. The idea recently won a vote of support from the London General Assembly, and my guest, Daniel Raven-Ellison, is now trying to raise enough money to push this campaign onto the mayor's desk. Daniel joins me now. How you doing?
I'm really good, thanks. How are you doing?
So you've got a crowdfunding campaign going. Last time I checked, you're about £10,000 short. Where are you now?
Yeah, we're still about £10,000 short. We're looking for about £9,000 to get us over the edge.
Help this man out, people.
I beg your pardon?
I said help this. I'm saying help this man out. I support this campaign. Make the case for it here. Let's do it.
Yeah, so I visited all 15 of the UK's national parks a year ago with my son, and I noticed that something was missing, and that's that 10% of England, 7% of the United Kingdom is urban habitat. And urban habitat can be more ecologically diverse, more ecologically valuable, and certainly just as fun to explore as far more remote and rural places. And I love rural national parks, but I think that by transforming London into what would be the world's first national park city, it can have a massive impact on people's mental health, their physical health, and also conservation of the city as well, really welcoming wildlife into the city far more than we're doing at the moment.
Now, is it a psychological shift, or will this be an actual shift in policy? I mean, will it change the way money is spent?
Look, this is definitely a psychological shift, but that's about how you then create a policy shift as well. So the way to think about this is that around the world, about half the national parks that there are in the world are failing. And they're not failing because they haven't got the legislation and planning and rules in place. They've got all that. It's because there isn't the right attitude of the people, or the people power, or the momentum in place, or the right level of investment to conserve the wildlife that needs to be conserved, but also to engage people properly as well. So what a London National Park City would do is, rather than telling people what not to do, it's more about inspiring people around best practice. So a really great example is that a quarter of London, 24%, is gardens, people's back gardens. But over the last couple of decades, a third of those gardens have been paved over. So one thing that we could do is try and inspire more people to pull up some of that paving over a long period of time, which would increase biodiversity. It would have an impact on improving urban resilience in the city against flooding and temperatures, and have other benefits as well. So that's one thing we could do. Another thing is that there's a big problem both in the United States and Britain and Australia with this sort of disconnection between children and nature. And that's what we really want to tackle. So at the moment, 1 in 7 London parents hasn't taken their child to a green space at all in the past year. Wow. And initiatives to connect children to nature, we can only guarantee reach about 4% of London's children under the age of 11. So we want a London National Park City to connect 100% of children to nature, 100%. So they're all benefiting for their mental health, their physical health, their development, their education. And crucially on that as well, you know, I'm in Washington, D.C. at the moment for the National Geographic Explorer Symposium. And a big focus of the work that National Geographic does is around conservation in remote and very distant places. But with more people living in cities than ever before, if our disconnected children are to care about what goes on in the middle of Africa or in the deepest oceans, then they need to start caring about nature on their doorstep first.
Now, I love this idea, and that's why I wanted to have you on. And the London General Assembly gave you kind of a, I don't know, tacit support. They said, we agree in principle. So politically now, where do things stand, and what do you need to have happen?
Yeah, this is just phenomenal, right? I mean, we started this off as a bit of a provocation, and it slipped into an accidental campaign, and now it's a really serious proposition that's backed by AECOM, which is one of the world's largest construction engineering consultancy firms at one end, which is fantastic, and there's small community groups at the other end. We've got this very broad church. And we've got a unanimous support from the London Assembly, from all 4 political parties, from right, left, centre, green, everything, saying that they want to help us in developing our plans around making London a national park city. So what we need to do is recruit their support fully. We need to recruit the support of the Mayor of London. And crucially, in London, there are 33 local authorities, all of which have a population of about 600,000 to 700,000 people in their own right. So we need to persuade each of them as well. And once we've persuaded all those public sector organisations, then we can then push forward and actually make it a legitimate national park in its own right. But this is, you know, a crowd-funded, citizen-led national park by the people, for the people, and that's why we're crowdfunding it, to try and get as much support on side so we can make this happen and we can persuade the mayor to support us fully.
So the mayor's saying he also supports you in principle, but he can't just change the law. What do you think about that?
Oh, the mayor he made the remark. The thing is, we're describing something called a national park city, so he's not actually quite right on that. So if we wanted London to be a national park, then it would have to do a number of things. It would have to be an area about stunning natural beauty. I think London is beautiful, but it's not like open countryside. It's inspiring, it's distinctive, but it's not necessarily what they mean by that. And it wouldn't quite fit the idea of what a traditional national park should be. National park cities, on the other hand, don't exist. We're making this national park city from the ground up. So the thing is, actually, we can just do this. We can make this thing happen.
All right, we've got about a minute left, but tell people, what are you going to do with the money? If you get the extra £10,000, you'll have £30,000 in all. What are you doing with the money?
So look, a lot of proposals that go out there just stay within policymakers, and they just go from, you know, one politician's desk to another politician's desk, and, you know, they don't really go to the people. And what we want to do is print a beautiful broadsheet proposal with big maps, beautiful photographs on it, that we can distribute to thousands of people across London so that everyone learns about it and everyone can buy into this big idea for the capital and everyone can take inspiration from it.
But wait a minute. Are you're printing your campaign on dead trees? How can an advocate for the trees be using trees to spread your word? Isn't it some kind of contradiction?
I don't think there's too much of a contradiction. I think it's definitely a one-off. We're not going to do it all the time. But
the trees support it anyway.
I'm sure they would definitely support it. London's the world's largest urban forest, which is absolutely incredible. We've got nearly as many trees as people. But I think the thing is that we need to get a message out to people to get their buy-in so we can then do great work. And just doing stuff online and just talking to our own people in some sort of big internet bubble doesn't help us reach out to people on the ground. We need to reach out to people on allotments and in farms and in community gardens.
All right, Daniel Raven-Ellison, for the campaign to make London into a national park city. Thank you very much for being on Greenhouse. Now back to the internet bubble. If you'd like to support the Greater London National Park campaign, go to greaterlondonnationalpark.org.uk and make a pledge.